When you hear of the name World Trade Organization, what comes to mind? As you see them in the news, but what exactly do they do? What if I were to tell you that the World Trade Organization is so powerful that they rule your country's economy? That is right, you heard correctly. But how? How does an organization have over 166 members, including Switzerland, and members that include countries you are either from or have visited? And if you are a business owner, you have probably even done business in these countries. The World Organization, you can bet, have a silent involvement. But why? The rise. Before you understand why, it is important that you know the beginning of their story. The story of the World Trade Organization begins long before the name exists. Its origins trace back to 1947, when 23 countries gathered in Geneva to sign the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, better known as GATT. The world had just emerged from World War II, and global leaders feared that economic instability could trigger another conflict. Their solution was simple but ambitious: create a rules-based system that would prevent trade wars, stabilize markets, and rebuild national economies through predictable global commerce. The early architects of this system included figures like John Maynard Keynes and Harry Dexter White, who had already shaped the Bretton Woods institutions, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. GATT became the third pillar of this new economic order. Through the 1950s and 1960s, GATT expanded as countries such as Japan, the United Kingdom, France, India, and Brazil joined, bringing more industries under its rules. By the 1970s, global trade had grown into a multi-trillion-dollar engine, and the GATT system became the backbone of international commerce. But GATT had limits. It lacked a permanent institution, it had no binding enforcement mechanism, and it struggled to manage disputes between major economies. The Tokyo Round, from 1973 to 1979, held in Geneva under leaders like President Jimmy Carter and Prime Minister Takeo Fukuda, attempted to modernize the system, but global markets were evolving faster than the rules. As supply chains expanded and services became a major economic sector, the world needed something stronger, something with legal authority, global reach, and the ability to shape national economic policy. That turning point came in 1986, when ministers from 123 countries met in Punta del Este, Uruguay, launching what became the most ambitious trade negotiation in history, the Uruguay Round. Key figures included U.S. Trade Representative Clayton Yeutter, European Commission President Jacques Delors, Indian Commerce Minister D. Tawari, and Brazilian Foreign Minister Roberto de Abreu Soter. Over 8 years, governments debated agriculture, textiles, intellectual property, and services, sectors worth trillions of dollars. The negotiations were intense, but the outcome was transformative. In April 1994, in Marrakesh, Morocco, world leaders signed the Marrakesh Agreement, officially creating the World Trade Organization. On January 1, 1995, the WTO opened its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, with Peter Sutherland as its first Director General. Unlike GATT, the WTO was not just a treaty. It was a full institution with legal authority, a dispute settlement system, and the power to enforce compliance. For the first time in history, countries agreed to follow binding global rules that could override national policies if they violated trade commitments. The economic impact was immediate. The Uruguay Round generated between $200 billion and $500 billion in additional global income annually. Membership surged as developing nations realized that joining the WTO could unlock access to global markets worth trillions of dollars. Countries like China, which joined in 2001 under President Jiang Zemin and Premier Zhu Rongji, used WTO membership to accelerate economic growth, attract foreign investment, and integrate into global supply chains. China's exports exploded from $266 billion in 2001 to over $2.5 trillion 2 decades later, a transformation directly tied to WTO rules. As the organization grew, so did its influence. Under Directors General Renato Ruggiero, Mike Moore, Supachai Panajpakdi, Pascal Lamy, and Roberto Azevedo, the WTO's dispute settlement system became the world's economic court, resolving conflicts between nations over tariffs, subsidies, and market access. Countries relied on it to protect their industries, challenge unfair practices, and secure billions of dollars in trade value. By the 2010s, the WTO had 164 members representing over 98% of global trade, making it one of the most powerful economic institutions on Earth. Under Director General Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala leadership, the WTO continues to shape global markets from its headquarters in Geneva. Its rules govern supply chains, digital trade, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and the movement of goods worth over $25 trillion annually. Whether a country is exporting steel, importing medicine, or negotiating tariffs, the WTO's framework determines the boundaries of what is allowed. This goes to show you that their rise was not sudden. As clearly throughout their story, they have also gone through some challenges that led to their rise. But what challenges do you think they experienced over the years? And what new challenges do you predict they will face? The challenges. As you know, from the moment the World Trade Organization was created on January 1, 1995, under its first Director General Peter Sutherland, the institution faced immediate pressure from the world's largest economies. The United States under President Bill Clinton, the European Union led by Jacques Santer, Japan under Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama, and emerging powers like India under Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao all demanded rules that protected their domestic industries while expanding access to global markets worth trillions of dollars. The first major challenge erupted in the late 1990s when the United States and the European Union clashed over agricultural subsidies. The EU's Common Agricultural Policy, backed by leaders like Romano Prodi, injected tens of billions of dollars into European farmers annually. Meanwhile, the United States, under President George W. Bush, maintained its own subsidy programs worth more than $20 billion per year. Developing nations, especially India under Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Brazil under President Fernando Henrique Cardoso, and South Africa under President Thabo Mbeki, argued that these subsidies distorted global markets and crushed their agricultural competitiveness. This conflict set the stage for the WTO's most ambitious and ultimately troubled negotiation, the Doha Development Round, launched in November 2001 in Doha, Qatar, under Director General Mike Moore. The goal was to reform agriculture, reduce tariffs, and expand market access for developing nations. But the negotiations quickly became a geopolitical standoff. The United States demanded stronger intellectual property protections. India, represented by Commerce Minister Arun Jaitley, insisted on deep cuts to Western farm subsidies. Brazil, led by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, pushed for fairer agricultural trade. China, which had joined the WTO in December 2001 under President Jiang Zemin, sought rules that supported its rapid industrial expansion. By July 2008, the Doha round collapsed in Geneva after the United States, represented by the U.S. Trade Representative Susan Schwab, and India, represented by Commerce Minister Kamal Nath, failed to agree on agricultural safeguard mechanisms. Another major challenge came from China's rise. After joining the WTO, China's exports surged from $266 billion in 2001 to more than $2.5 trillion 2 decades later. The United States accused China, under President Hu Jintao and later President Xi Jinping, of using state subsidies, forced technology transfers, and non-market practices to dominate global manufacturing. This led to dozens of WTO disputes involving steel, solar panels, rare earth minerals, and intellectual property. The WTO faced an institutional crisis in 2019 when the United States under President Donald Trump blocked appointments to the Appellate body, paralyzing the organization's enforcement mechanism. Today, under Director General Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the WTO continues to face pressure from the United States, China, India, Brazil, the European Union, and dozens of developing nations, all competing for influence over a global trading system worth more than $25 trillion annually. So these challenges, you can see that they definitely had major turning points that not only influence other nations, they also clearly influence you. The turning points. How they influence comes down to how they manage their challenges. Has challenges turned to turning points? Have you ever wondered about your own challenges you overcame that led to major turning points in your life and career? So the first major turning point for the World Trade Organization came on January 1, 1995, when it officially replaced the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Under its first Director General Peter Sutherland, the WTO gained binding legal authority, transforming it from a negotiation forum into a global economic institution capable of influencing national policy. This was the moment the WTO became more than a treaty. It became a system. The second turning point came almost immediately: the rapid expansion of membership. Between 1995 and the early 2000s, dozens of nations, from Jordan under King Hussein, to Estonia under President Lennart Meri, to Latvia under President Gunnis Ulmanis, to Bulgaria under President Zilya Zalev, joined the WTO. Each accession required years of negotiations, legal reforms, and economic restructuring. Reaching 166 members was not an accident. It was a geopolitical project. Every new member meant another economy adopting WTO rules, another government aligning domestic policy with global standards, and another confirmation that the WTO's influence was expanding across continents. The third turning point arrived in December 1999 during the Seattle Ministerial Conference under Director General Mike Moore. More than 30,000 protesters filled the streets, accusing the WTO of favoring multinational corporations and undermining labor and environmental protections. The conference collapsed, marking the first time public pressure derailed a major WTO meeting. This controversy forced the organization to confront its legitimacy crisis. A fourth turning point came in November 2001, when 142 nations met in Doha, Qatar, launching the Doha Development Round. Led by Mike Moore and later Supachi Panachpakdi, the round aimed to rebalance the system for developing countries. But the negotiations quickly became a geopolitical struggle. The United States under President George W. Bush, the European Union under President Romano Prodi, India under Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and Brazil under President Fernando Henrique Cardoso clashed over agricultural subsidies worth tens of billions of dollars. The Doha round became the longest and most contentious negotiation in WTO history. The fifth turning point came in December 2001, when China, under President Jiang Zemin and Premier Zhu Rongji, joined the WTO. China's exports surged from $266 billion in 2001 to more than $2.5 trillion 2 decades later. This single accession reshaped global manufacturing and triggered dozens of disputes with the United States under President Barack Obama and later President Donald Trump. The sixth turning point occurred in 2019 when the WTO's appellate body, its highest court, was effectively shut down after the United States blocked new judge appointments. Without an appeals system, the WTO lost its enforcement power for the first time since 1995. Under Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the WTO faces a new turning point, redefining its authority in a world shaped by digital trade, supply chain shocks, geopolitical rivalry, and a global economy worth more than $25 trillion annually. So, with all that said, what strategies do you believe that the World Trade Organization implemented? The strategies. You do not become a global power player by just the click of your fingers. From the very beginning in 1947, the architects of the post-war economic order, including John Maynard Keynes and Harry Dexter White, used a simple strategy: create global rules strong enough to prevent economic conflict. Under the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, they relied on negotiation rounds to reduce tariffs and stabilize economies. But GATT lacked enforcement, and this weakness shaped the WTO's first major strategy. The first strategy emerged on January 1, 1995, when the World Trade Organization was created under its first Director General Peter Sutherland. The WTO introduced the Dispute Settlement Understanding (DSU), a legally binding system with panels and an appellate body. This strategy gave the WTO unprecedented authority. It could issue rulings that forced nations to change domestic laws. For the United States, the European Union, Japan, India, Brazil, and China, billions of dollars in trade outcomes were now decided in Geneva. The second strategy was global expansion through accession. Between 1995 and the early 2000s, the WTO strategically added dozens of new members, from Jordan under King Hussein, to Estonia under President Lennart Meri, to Latvia under President Guntis Ulmanis, to Bulgaria under President Zilya Zalev. Each accession required legal reforms, market liberalization, and alignment with WTO rules. This was not passive growth. It was a deliberate strategy to universalize WTO authority. Reaching 166 members meant the WTO's rules governed nearly every economy on Earth, giving it influence over more than 98% of global trade. The third strategy was transparency and surveillance. In 1995, the WTO launched the Trade Policy Review Mechanism, TPRM, requiring every member to undergo regular examinations of their trade laws. This strategy forced governments to reveal subsidies, tariffs, and regulations, exposing, for example, Western agricultural subsidies exceeding $20 billion annually. Transparency became a tool of influence. The fourth strategy was multilateral negotiation rounds, including the Doha Development Round launched in November 2001 in Doha, Qatar, under Mike Moore, and later Subsidy. Although controversial and ultimately stalled, the strategy aimed to rebalance the system for developing nations by reducing agricultural subsidies and expanding market access. The fifth strategy emerged after crisis. When the appellate body was paralyzed in 2019 under President Donald Trump, the WTO adopted the multi-party interim appeal arbitration arrangement, led by the European Union. This strategy preserved dispute resolution for participating nations and prevented the system from collapsing entirely. With Director General Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the WTO strategy focuses on digital trade rules, supply chain resilience, and restoring the dispute system, all within a global economy exceeding $25 trillion in annual trade. It makes you wonder, are there any more lessons to learn from the WTO? And if so, what are those lessons? As you are witnessing, from the moment John Maynard Keynes and Harry Dexter White began shaping the post-war economic order in 1947, the world revealed something quietly consistent. Nations move fastest when uncertainty is greatest. Countries that had just survived war accepted the general agreement on tariffs and trade because predictability felt like power. Stability became a currency, and the institutions that offered it gained influence long before they gained authority. When the World Trade Organization was created on January 1, 1995, under Peter Sutherland, that same pattern resurfaced. The introduction of the Dispute Settlement Understanding didn't just change how trade disputes were handled. It changed how governments made decisions. Knowing that billions of dollars in outcomes could be decided in Geneva forced countries to think less about what they wanted and more about what the rules allowed. Quietly, the center of gravity shifted from national ambition to institutional compliance. As the WTO expanded, adding members like Jordan, Estonia, Latvia, and Bulgaria, something deeper happened beneath the surface. Nations didn't just join for market access. They reshaped their economic identities to fit a global framework. The pursuit of opportunity made alignment feel natural, and by the time the organization reached 166 members, conformity looked less like pressure and more like progress. The collapse of the Seattle Ministerial Conference in 1999, where more than 30,000 protesters challenged the WTO's legitimacy, exposed another quiet truth. Influence always attracts resistance. Yet the organization didn't respond with force, it responded with adjustment. It learned that survival depends less on dominance and more on the ability to absorb criticism without losing direction. The Doha Development Round, launched in November 2001 under Mike Moore and later Subsidy, revealed how deeply money shapes global cooperation. Agricultural subsidies exceeding $20 billion didn't just stall negotiations. They exposed how nations protect what funds their future, even when unity is the stated goal. When China joined in December 2001 under Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji, its exports rising from $266 billion to over $2.5 trillion, the world saw how ambition accelerates when it plugs into a system larger than itself. Even the appellate body crisis in 2019, triggered under President Donald Trump, showed that institutions endure not through force, but through reinvention, a principle now guiding Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as she navigates a global economy exceeding $25 trillion. Especially during a global oil crisis triggered by conflict between America and their ally against Iran. These lessons you can definitely apply to your own life and businesses. But before you apply them, it is worth going over a recap of the World Trade Organization's journey. As you are witnessing, from the moment John Maynard Keynes and Harry Dexter White began shaping the post-war economic order in 1947, the world revealed something quietly consistent. Nations move fastest when uncertainty is greatest. Countries emerging from devastation accepted the general agreement on tariffs and trade because predictability felt like power. Stability became a form of currency, and the institutions capable of offering it gained influence long before they gained authority. Why do you think this was around the same era as the creation of the Bank for International Settlements, as well the creation of the International Monetary Fund, and also the World Bank? So when the World Trade Organization appeared on January 1st, 1995, under Peter Sutherland, that pattern resurfaced. The Dispute Settlement Understanding didn't simply reorganize trade disputes. It altered how governments calculated risk. Knowing that billions of dollars could be decided in Geneva forced nations to measure their ambitions against the boundaries of a rulebook they didn't write. Quietly, the center of gravity shifted from national preference to institutional discipline. As the WTO expanded, adding Jordan, Estonia, Latvia, and Bulgaria, and eventually reaching 166 members, something deeper unfolded. Countries didn't just join, they reshaped themselves. Laws were rewritten, industries restructured, and identities adjusted to fit a global framework that promised access to markets worth trillions. Alignment became the path of least resistance. Then came Seattle in 1999. More than 30,000 protesters filled the streets, confronting an institution they believed had grown too powerful, too distant, too corporate. Tear gas drifted through a city that had never expected to become the stage for a global reckoning. Influence had met its first major wall of public defiance. The Doha Development Round, launched in November 2001 under Mike Moore and later Supachi Panachpakdi, carried the hopes of developing nations, only to be stalled by agricultural subsidies exceeding $20 billion. Idealism collided with economic self-interest, and the system revealed its limits. When China joined in December 2001 under Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji, its exports surged from $266 billion to over $2.5 trillion, shifting global manufacturing and unsettling long-established powers. And in 2019, when the Appellate body collapsed under pressure from President Donald Trump, the fragility of the system became impossible to ignore. Under Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the WTO now navigates a world of sanctions, oil shocks, and a global economy exceeding $25 trillion, where every decision carries geopolitical weight. These moments not only made the World Trade Organization who they are and what they are becoming, they are making you and what you and businesses will eventually become. Therefore, what really is the principle of the World Trade Organization? The principle. As you can see by now, the World Trade Organization is built on a single, invisible pact: certainty over sovereignty. To understand the WTO is to understand a global trade-off. Over 160+ nations have stepped into a room and made a profound deal. They have surrendered a piece of their national pride, their right to change the rules at a whim, in exchange for a world that is predictable. They traded the chaos of the strongest win for the stability of the handshake. This is the global insurance policy. Before this pact, trade was a minefield. If a leader woke up angry, they could triple the tax on a neighbor's wheat or a rival's steel by noon. These were the trade wars, economic tremors that spiked the price of bread, emptied factory floors, and, far too often, paved the road to literal war. The WTO ended the ambush. Through two sacred pillars, most favored nation and national treatment, it leveled the Earth's playing field. It dictated that you cannot play favorites, and you cannot rig the home game. Once a product crosses your border, the law treats it as your own. This is the invisible safety net of your modern life. It is the reason a company in Seoul feels safe building a microchip for a phone resourced in DR Congo, designed in California, and sold in London. It is the silent force that ensures your local pharmacy has medicine and your supermarket has fruit, even in the dead of winter. It removes the risk of the unknown. But the stakes are higher than just the price of a smartphone. The ultimate principle of the WTO is that interdependence is the ultimate deterrent. It operates on the radical belief that if our economies are stitched so tightly together that tearing them apart would be agonizing, we will choose to stay at the table rather than go to the trenches. It is a rulebook for an imperfect world. It is slow, it is bureaucratic, and it is often under fire. But it remains the only thing standing between a functioning global marketplace and a lawless global free-for-all. The principle is simple. We are all more prosperous when the rules are boring and the handshake is gold. Because this is how the World Trade Organization not just rule your country, they also help influence many nations and therefore create and maintain economies that you live in or visited or even do business in. So,